Good afternoon. There has been heavy fighting in Kiev throughout the night and early this morning, with Russian troops fighting Ukrainians on the streets of the capital. 2 Russian aircraft are reported to have been shot down. A power station has also come under attack. But the Russian military appears to have met with firm resistance from Ukrainian forces. The city has not fallen. But an apartment building was struck by a missile. President Volodymyr Zelensky has again vowed to defend his country. Well, this is the scene in the capital Kiev right now, eerily quiet after a night of gunfire, and we will be live from there in a moment. But first, our correspondent Geraint Vincent has the latest developments.
Russia likes to say its operation in Ukraine is about protecting civilians. The missiles tell a different story. One slammed into a block of flats in Kiev this morning. As the injured were being carried out, the city's mayor posted a message on social media. Vitaly Klitschko urged people to stay calm and to stay in the shelters. The enemy, he said, will attack from the air. Last night saw fierce fighting in the capital. The Ukrainian military says they repelled several attacks on the ground. The fire you can see here, part of a Russian convoy which was stopped as it made its way into the city. This morning, defenders walked through its charred remains. At around the same time, the Ukrainian president appeared on social media in Kiev and keen to dispel any fake news of his departure. In a TV address later, a clearly exhausted Volodymyr Zelensky said that Russia was throwing everything at them. But he said, we are fighting back. And they're doing so in the streets and in the neighbourhoods. A Ukrainian opposition MP is among those who've taken up arms. Earlier this morning, she told us why.
I'm so angry that right now I am a woman. I have to bear arms and I have to fight the tyranny that just decided that they would take what is ours, that they would come and try to throw me away from my house, they would scare my family and then try to change the way that my country works. And when you're very angry, there is no place for the fear.
Part of the Russian strategy here is now very clear: to take control of the Ukrainian capital and unseat the government. But that plan is not being executed as quickly or as easily as they would like. For a second day yesterday, they were still sending attack helicopters to join the battle to take a key airbase on the outskirts of Kiev. And this morning, Ukrainian forces say they shot down 2 Russian transport planes, which were bringing in more troops and supplies. In Kiev, when the air raid sirens wail, people take shelter in the metro stations. In the basement of a hospital last night, a baby boy was born, beneath a city where a battle is being fought to make sure he can grow up free. Geraint Vincent, ITV News.
Let's go live now to Kiev and our Europe editor James Mates. And James, it seems relatively calm there right now, but the scene of very fierce fighting earlier today.
Yeah, which we didn't see, we heard all through the early hours in the suburbs, mostly to the north of us. But it has been eerily quiet, really, on a rather beautiful, clear day here today. But we know more is coming. The curfew order tonight is because of the Ukrainians are very fearful of saboteurs or infiltrators. They want absolutely everybody off the street in case other, or for when, not if, other attacks come. It's quite hard to know what the Russian strategy is here. They've clearly now tried twice to launch rapid incursions into the city in order to try and turn the defenders and, if possible, kill or capture the leadership, and both of those have been repulsed. So what do they do now? No one had thought they were ever really going to try and take Kiev, because it's not a permissive environment for the sort of weapons they have, for tanks, for aircraft, unless you're just going to bomb the place to rubble and there. But short of that, it had been assumed that they would surround the city and contain it and fight the war elsewhere. Well, we'll see how their strategy carries on developing after these two unsuccessful assaults. Do they come back bigger, harder, much heavier weapons, bringing the heavy armour down here, or do they decide to focus on the war elsewhere, which isn't exactly going well? We're getting reports of further fighting, but still no control of a major city so far for the Russians.
All right, James Mates in Kiev, thank you. And our political correspondent David Wood is here. Now, David, there are further calls, aren't there, on the government to do more, but what realistically are their options?
Mary, I think there are two options. The first, military. No UK troops will be sent into Ukraine, but last night the Defence Secretary led a meeting of 25 nations that have agreed to either donate weapons and/or humanitarian aid. But the difficulty will be, as the situation worsens in Ukraine, actually getting that equipment in. The other avenue is economic, and sanctions. A protest in Westminster this lunchtime is calling on the government to go further. There is criticism that the UK hasn't imposed sanctions on certain named Russians, that other countries have done so. Ministers say it's not done that yet, but they are coming. It needs to sort the legals out first, so that once they're imposed, they're not then unpicked in court. But the big diplomatic push this weekend is on SWIFT, the international banking system. The UK wants Russia out, saying it will really hit the economy there hard. Some EU nations like Germany not so keen, but there is confidence, I'm told, in Downing Street that is changing. And it will take time, though, to implement. But the difficult and uncomfortable reality for the government is there's this emphasis on sanctions, but they're not working. All
right, David Wood, thank you. And that is it for now. We'll be back with all the latest developments in Ukraine at 10 to 7. But for now, from the teams here and there, bye-bye.